From the Sunshine State, this is Tampa Bay's Tan Talk.
It's time for FLALAW, brought to you by the personal injury attorneys of Perinick, Caulfield, Averill, and Noyes. This hour will be informative, along with taking your questions and comments. Now, here are your hosts for today's show.
That's right. We are live with FLALAW, live on the radio. Thank you for tuning in. As our intro says, this is your 5 o'clock legal live call-in talk show that we do every Tuesday at 5 p.m. So hopefully you're a faithful listener. Welcome back. We appreciate you for joining in. But if this is your first time, thank you for joining us. And it's time for you to share with your family members and friends and let them know that the live legal call-in talk show is on the air for the next hour, talking about legal topics. Tonight, we're going to be very, very specialized. We have an awesome attorney with us who has a pretty cool niche that we're going to get into that I think will impact a lot of our listeners tonight. So before I get into our special guests and who we have on the talk show tonight, I, of course, want to remind you of all the ways you can continue to listen the whole show through. As I said, you have us, FLALAW, on the radio for the next hour. But we know people, obviously move around and move about and maybe can't catch the whole show on the radio. So I want to give you all the details on how to continue watching the show. As you know, we're the personal injury attorneys at Perinick, Caulfield, Averill, Noyes who host FLALAW on the radio. And so you can catch the live stream right now on our social media accounts and our YouTube channel. So if you're wanting to see us live in the studio, you can. We're on both those platforms. So if you type in Perinick, Caulfield, Averill, Noyes Injury Lawyers, you should see a red circle around the logo on the pages. That should allow you to see the live stream. And you can actually comment and leave questions or comments in the chat portion of the live stream on both Facebook and YouTube. So we'll be checking those throughout the show tonight. And of course, if you have questions for myself or my guests tonight, you can get those in because this is the time to do so. We consider this a public service to our community. And so we want you to have that opportunity over this next hour to be able to get those questions or comments in, especially if you just have an interesting story you want to share. We'll go over some great stories tonight, I'm sure, and scenarios that we've encountered of both of us, because we both handle these kinds of cases and from a different perspective on opposite sides of the V, if you will. So be a great show. Without further ado, let me first tell you the phone number and how you can call in if you'd like to call in tonight, and also give you some more information about how you can watch the show in the future. Tonight, if you want to call us, the number to call into the studio is 727-441-3000. Again, the call-in number for tonight is 727-441-3000. If you're unable to watch the whole show, but you are intrigued, you've gotten into it and you want to finish it up later, no problem. We got you covered, because we do put this show on our podcast, which you can pretty much find on most podcast platforms. Anywhere that you typically would consume a podcast, you can find FLALAW on the radio. So Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts. The show will be on there as well, and we'll make sure we get it to you, April, as well, so that you can share it on whatever platforms you'd like. But that way you can go back and listen to the show and hear everything that's going to be said tonight. So that way, if you miss a little bit, you can go back and catch it up later on your commute home or on the way to work. Listen to the whole show, because I think you're going to get a lot of good information out of tonight's show. With that being said, I have the pleasure of introducing a past guest. It's been a while, but she actually came on FLALAW on the radio a while back and talked about some interesting patent law topics. She also does employment law, and she has her own firm currently located in St. Pete. But I know she handles cases all over the state of Florida. With that being said, I'm going to turn the floor over to my special guest tonight, attorney April Goodwin, to, of course, reintroduce herself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about your firm, what you do, and where you're located.
Thank you, Jacqueline. So April Goodwin, I've been a lawyer for almost 25 years this year. Oh my
Awesome.
gosh. Yeah. And so the past 11 years, I've had my own firm. We're currently located in St. Pete. Like you said, take cases all over Florida. We represent employers in the business side and employment law. We also do trademarks and other kinds of various business type things, and then also pet law. I always leave that for last because people say, what is that? And that takes up the most conversation.
Yes.
So we represent pet owners and pet businesses for their various needs.
Right. And I think that is so cool. You just don't see many attorneys that do that. With that being said, we obviously don't want to highlight any of your competition, but are there very many attorneys that handle this kind of pet law area?
There's not too many. I had my I would say mentor in this. She moved out of state and is no longer practicing in Florida. I had another competitor but friend as well,
Sure.
and she became a judge in another county. So there are a few out there who market to it, but not too many who have a particular focus in this.
Right.
Maybe there's a couple others around the state.
I think that's so cool. So you guys really have a pet law expert here tonight who can give you some insight onto the issues that we're dealing with. Tonight, we are really going to be focusing in particularly on dog bites, right? I think that's a good topic for the both of us because we both come across these kinds of cases in our practice, but from different perspectives, right? Totally different viewpoints in how we may approach it, but we're still dealing with the same body of law, if you will. And so I thought it'd be great to have you on the show so that you can, of course, inform, our listeners and dog owners as far as the perspective of when they're dealing with a situation where they have a bad day for their dog, right?
Right.
And this could happen to anyone. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity for you to kind of go over, what dog bite situations are in the state of Florida. There's obviously a statute that applies and so forth. And so let's jump into that first. Just kind of walk us through a little bit. If someone owns a dog in the state of Florida and they've had a situation and they come to you after somebody either has made a claim, maybe they've gotten a letter of representation from a lawyer, or they just know that their dog has just bitten someone and they come to you. What are first steps? Kind of what are we talking here?
Well, the first thing we do is look at all the different aspects. So really, there are mainly 3 different areas of law that this can cover.
Okay.
Like you said, they could have gotten a letter of representation from a personal injury, attorney like yourself,
like me,
or gotten sued, and that's when they find out
they got served, right?
Yeah. Usually they've had some sort of notice before that, but or just know that that's coming down the line. Maybe the person said, "I'm going to sue you" or whatever, or they're just concerned about it. Then there is also animal control.
Yes.
And there are various aspects of when animal control gets involved, when they don't, on what they may do. And then there's if they have an HOA or a condo association, that kind of law comes in and that's usually the last one that people have to deal with. I was going to say think about. It might be the first one they think about, just because of
to be honest, if I lived in an HOA, I would be freaking out.
Yeah, the drama and everything of it. But it's a lot of times the associations wait to see how everything else plays out and see if animal control in particular is going to do anything. But that is the other aspect. So we handle all of those aspects, and if it was a service animal or an emotional support animal, that adds another element to it as well.
Yeah. So before we kind of start parsing out the law and how you may approach the type of dog it was or the nature of the dog, whether those things even matter, I want to go back to the animal control issue.
Yeah.
So typically, what is the involvement with animal control and what can people expect? It really varies county to county.
There are some animal control agencies that are, for lack of a better word, aggressive, and not. I don't mean that as a personality. They're actually very good to work with from a lawyer perspective. They care about the dogs. They care about the people. Generally speaking, it's been very rare that I've run into one that is just a problem for my clients, other than the fact that they're doing their job. So that's good, and they're usually really good to work with, even in those counties where they are going to be more likely to cite somebody than not. Some counties, like Hillsborough, Pinellas does not have this, but have a lesser kind of offense where it doesn't quite rise to the state dangerous dog case, which is the worst case scenario.
Right.
And those are very broadly written county ordinances. And they're generally just a ticket, but it might be not necessarily one strike, but it definitely goes, like they used to tell us in school, on their permanent record kind of a thing. But the dangerous dog is a scary one. That is, what a lot of people don't understand is, even though it's called the dangerous dog statute, it can be, like you said before, your dog had a bad day.
Yeah.
It can be, a little dog's or another dog's fault. It can be, people want to say, well, they stuck their hand into a dog fight. Yeah, well, your dog was attacking their dog. What do you expect them to do? But some counties would say, no, you got involved in a dog fight, so we're not going to, do anything about that. So there is, it's really officer dependent, but just like any kind of law enforcement agency or government, they each kind of have their own little personalities and what they'll enforce and what they'll be a little bit more lax on. But not having that lesser statute or ordinance, I think, makes a difference with Pinellas County sometimes, because they don't really have anywhere else to put anybody. They don't have that kind of catch-all.
Gotcha.
Whereas the counties do, so you're probably more likely to get cited.
Right. So then, going back to that situation where you said your dog just had a bad day, let's talk about the dog owner who has a dog who's never bitten anyone before.
Right.
And they come to you and they're like, this has never happened, and now it has happened. Does that have an impact at all, that the fact that there's no history?
Right. Well, I think virtually every client we have tells us that their dog has never done that.
Yes.
It's their baby, and their baby does no wrong.
Yeah.
And of course we believe that. But sometimes really they haven't, and it doesn't impact it as far as the litigation goes, like a lawsuit. That doesn't matter. In fact, it's right in the statute that says doesn't matter if your dog has exhibited any kind of behavior like this before. And with animal control, it doesn't matter if they haven't done it before as far as what they might cite it for. It's the severity of the injury. That said, if they have, like I said before, done it before, animal control might be a little bit more restrictive with what the punishment or what they do, and you might be facing euthanasia at that point.
You actually anticipated my next question. I was going to say, what's the severity of the citation, if you will? And I don't know if that's the proper way to call it when it becomes euthanasia, but what's the severity of it, and what would get it to that point where a dog may be euthanized?
Yeah. Most of the time, fortunately for everybody involved, it is not that. So don't assume because you got certainly a vicious or aggressive dog, that tends to be what the lesser ordinance is called. Euthanasia is not on the table on that. If it was, they'd be giving you the higher one. It is, and it typically isn't with a dangerous dog either. Obviously, your dog kills somebody. That's not good. If all they've done is attack or even kill a domestic animal, and that's the only time they've done it, that's not going to be a dangerous dog. Now, that might be the vicious dog or the aggressive dog, the lesser one, and you might still get sued. That's a whole other issue. But that is, or get kicked out of your association. But that is, but that's not it. But if it's a severe bite, now the definition of severe is... they don't ask us who do these things, like people like you and I, to write these statutes and these definitions, and I wish they did. But the definition of severe is not really in the statute, but as you probably know, what it usually ends up being is that if they've gotten a, quote, suture or a stitch, and one stitch somewhere, that's severe enough for a dangerous dog. If that's all it is, and it's, biting a kid on the face is going to be worse, things like that. It is an optics kind of thing, too. But generally speaking, you're going to be looking at a bunch of restrictions for your dog for the rest of its life, and an increase in your insurance. You're going to have to get some insurance. There are some really restrictive things, but, your dog will live. You'll have to put it on a muzzle whenever you take it out. You're not going to a dog park or anything like that, but your dog didn't have to stay in the house all the time or anything like that. And, the animal control officers will talk to you about that, too, and say, look, what are we looking at here?
Yeah. They'll kind of go over the process. So then is that essentially, I don't know if I'm using the right term, but like the governing body then that's deciding if your dog is classified under the statute as a dangerous dog?
They are actually, yes. So you'll get a letter that says notice of some sort that they're doing a dangerous dog investigation. Technically, usually you will get that. And then you'll get an opportunity to provide an affidavit I would love it if my clients, or people called me before then. I can walk you through what to put in the affidavit, whether you should do one, those kinds of things. But if you don't fill it out, they will decide without you. The other side will get an affidavit. You don't get to see it until the investigation's over and you do a public records request. But that is, they'll do that, and that's the process. And they will really, the agency decides whether or not the dog is dangerous. Yeah, it's got to be one affidavit of but two affidavits, and usually the officer is one.
Yeah. So there's no administrative hearing or anything like that, or
not initially, no. Okay. So dogs. And all pets are property in Florida, so your property is constitutionally protected. They have to give you due process and the right to a hearing if they're going to deprive you of anything. And even telling you to put a muzzle on your dog is depriving you somewhat of your property. So you have to very quickly, usually within 7 days. So if they decide your dog is dangerous, they deem your dog dangerous, you'll get a letter or notice of that. Look in that. There should be a number of days. It's usually around 7, maybe 10, 14. That you have to appeal it, and all you usually have to do, but it'll tell you how, is to send them a letter and say you're going to appeal it. Once you've appealed it, then that is, you have the hearing at that point. Every county has a different process. Some are in front of a judge, some are in front of a magistrate, which is usually a lawyer, but sometimes it's not. Yeah. Some are in front of, had one in Pasco in front of, county, employees, in the county commissioner room, so it's really up to the state has left it up to the counties as to how they put all this into place and how they provide it, but they do say you got to give due process.
Gotcha. So if someone's calling you in that phase, they've gotten that letter, they've got a 2-week window or whatever, how do you typically assist in terms of preparing the affidavits, going to the hearing, and things like that?
Right, yeah. So at that point, you're beyond affidavit. So you're going to have a hearing. So hope if they've
is it evidentiary?
It is evidentiary hearing, right? And then you have a chance to appeal that, and that usually, if it's not in front of a judge already, that's when you're going to get to a judge. And there are certain rules as to how they, what all a judge will listen to on appeals.
I was just going to ask, what does the judge care about? What are the things?
Sometimes usually it's a hearing, what they call de novo. So it's just, we're not going to rehash all the evidence. We're not going to do all that. We're just going to decide legally if this, follows the law. The law is written very broadly because it's really written in line with, some really horrific things that happened and made the news and genuinely dangerous dogs. But it's your dog is deemed dangerous, and even if they are otherwise a very good boy or a girl, have had all the training in the world. It's just one bad day, and they have this label on them. And usually, done a few appeals, but usually it only makes sense to appeal if there's some sort of procedural violation.
Right. Okay. And so I guess I'm trying to contextualize the two concepts in my mind. So you can have a dog that can be deemed dangerous, but are there certain breeds in and of itself that are already categorized as such, or no?
Actually, Florida a few years ago did away with breed-specific language or legislation. I'm sorry. So you can't do that as a county. They can't say specifically a breed. Now your landlord, the insurance company, things like that, they can still exclude, but a government can't, including the state. So there is no breed that is deemed dangerous per se. Most of our dogs with our clients are bigger because, let's be honest, they're going to do more damage. Right, so somebody, a schnauzer, miniature schnauzer bites you, maybe you don't complain about it. But we have had a couple little dogs.
Gotcha. Okay.
Not dangerous, but get in trouble.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I would imagine, like you said, just things happen and you can have a bad day. There's so many facts surrounding what could have led to it. So
Right.
Okay, so then my question, do people come to you often when they're struggling to find a place to live because of the kind of pet they have, or the pet has been deemed dangerous? Do they have to disclose those kind of things too?
Yeah, well, that'll depend on your lease, but you generally, if the dangerous dog statute's got a whole big long list, and you'll be given that once your dog is deemed dangerous of what you have to do. You have to let animal control know. You do have to post signs, so your landlord, your neighbors are going to know.
Gotcha.
And that is, they are going to know that you have a dangerous dog. But really, I mean, and we can get to this later, I'm sure, when we're talking about lawsuits, but my advice is always to get your Beware of Dog sign anyway. Yeah. Even if you have the fluffiest, sweetest little teeny tiny Maltese or whatever.
Just have it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that I could see how that's certainly going to help you in litigation to have that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's jump into a little bit then of when you're dealing with litigation as opposed, we're kind of realizing the lawsuit's coming. Maybe they've been served or a demand letter has gone out. What do you find really surprises people about this process? Because I think it might be the strict liability, but you tell me, what do you think surprises dog owners, because they're the ones that are coming to you. We're seeing it from the other side.
Strict liabilities, most lay people don't understand.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you own the dog, your dog bit somebody. Yeah. So that's kind of easy for them, unless it's like they weren't there or it was,
Or they think, I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. Really what surprises them, and this is again kind of a fact-specific thing, is that, your neighbor, your best friend from high school, your brother-in-law will sue you.
Yeah.
That's usually that.
Yes.
And that, yes, they can sue. And it, as I always tell everybody in America, anybody can sue anyone for anything. You just got to write something down on a piece of paper, and then you got to defend it. Even if it's, just completely, wrong. So you got to go and prove it's wrong, basically. Technically, you're not supposed to be willing to prove it, but we know reality is you got to come up with your evidence.
Right.
So that is, really, I think the surprising thing, and that it's not necessarily bite. That it's not just a bite. The dog bite statute, strict liability is just a bite, but negligence can be your dog was happy and knocked somebody over or scratched them or whatever. And we have had cases like that. Just an exuberant, big golden retriever or something,
very large
knocking
dog,
somebody down, and that's not strict liability, but it's still your dog caused allegedly an injury, and you have a few more defenses there, but you're still going to have to defend it. And if that's what it turns out to be, then yes, you're going to have to do that. It's also surprising to landlords and property owners who it's not their dog when they get sued.
I didn't consider that sometimes the landowner or the landlords just think that that's the tenant's responsibility.
Right.
It's their dog. I don't own it, but we'll get into why that doesn't. That's not necessarily the case. So let's go back to, you mentioned something very briefly just a second ago about some dog owners are like, well, I wasn't there.
Right.
So let's assume they are there, or there's things that have been done that contribute to what occurred. What are some mistakes that you sometimes see that dog owners might do? And when I say that, I'm thinking of just an example. Like, for example, I've seen in premises liability cases or slip and falls where a manager might admit, we told them to clean that up and they didn't,
right.
It's there, or I'm so sorry, and they apologize. And to me, that's great. I want those facts. But things that may happen in a dog bite case where you're like, ugh, don't do that.
Right.
These are mistakes.
Telling them, really talking to anybody about, you can't, like I said, your brother-in-law could sue you, and then your sister's on, her husband's side or whatever.
Yeah.
So, really talking to anybody about your, the dogs, if that has any prior injuries, not telling your lawyer, or not injuries, but, dog bites.
Instances,
not telling your lawyer that. That's always, it's always good for us to know that, because that can
always
contribute
disclose everything to your lawyer.
Yes, exactly. And even though, strict liability doesn't matter, one bad day, doesn't matter if they've had multiple bites, in the sense of you're still responsible, even if it's just one, it does make it a worse day for you if they have had more than one.
Right.
And that's true across the board for any kind of case involving dog bites. But that is something, but the flip side of that is I see a lot of people, because they freak out a little bit too much, or because they're mad because they think the other person caused it, or they're being dramatic or whatever, or they, now there's words between them, not checking in on them. Like, you don't have to say, like, I'm sorry, it was my dog's fault, or I shouldn't have let them loose, or, they bite everybody like that. You knew they bite everybody, whatever. But just, without
sometimes that can go a long way. Yeah.
I've had cases where I'm pretty sure that's, a jury held my client responsible because they did not like when they heard that my client just kind of clammed up and, and you might be socially awkward or whatever. Now, you don't always know the person, or it might be a UPS driver or something like that. But it's someone then definitely. And also, keeping those texts and stuff like that you get from people. And again, giving all of those to your lawyer, and including the good and the bad and the ugly.
Yeah, we need to see it all.
Yeah. But that is really, I think, in the immediate aftermath. Now I'm not saying bend over backwards. Like I've had clients that drove the person to the hospital and waited there with them, and they get sued.
Yeah.
It happens. But at least, it's definitely less likely. They did a study years ago, I think it was on medical malpractice, that doctors, regardless of skill, if you have better bedside manner, you're less likely to be sued.
I agree.
So, be a little human about it, but just you can be careful and not, maybe talk about the exact incident and the mechanics of it, and certainly not your dog's past, or even like, oh, yeah, you just bit someone again last week. So, just be careful of that. But that is really, I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And, listen, if you try, you try, and you're met with, anger or whatever, then you can drop it, but at least you tried.
Yeah.
And it might not solve it, but it might go away a long way, and if nothing else, it might go a long way with a judge or a jury.
Yeah, I think so.
If you get to that point.
Yeah. I want to go back to something. We're going a little bit off of our outline, if you will, but I do want to go back to the idea that, domestic animal that is property, if you will. I have seen cases or clients who've called about, let's say they're at a dog park or somewhere, and one dog attacks another dog.
Yeah.
That's not something we do, but people are quite passionate about it, and I assume that claims do get pursued.
Right.
Where you've severely injured my dog, but they don't necessarily see that dog as property.
Right.
And so I want to touch on that, because I think that's really important for our listeners to understand what their rights are when another animal has injured or bitten your pet.
Right. And actually, we don't handle these, and you'll see why when I'm done with it. We do on the dog, the allegedly offending.
The defense side, right?
Yeah, the defense side. But we don't get a whole lot of them because they're just not really, unfortunately, very good cases for anybody involved. And that's even if, unfortunately, the other animal dies.
Right,
it is. Right. So the reason for that is, animals or pets are property, and Florida has, assigned a value to them of, you can get, your vet bills. You might be able to get some, extra, like if your dog is a especially pampered pet and things like that. If your dog is a YouTube or a Instagram model.
Your dog is a content creator, which could be a big deal these days.
Yeah, exactly. If you're, Lassie's, 100th descendant or something like that, or service animal or something because they're very expensive, or some very expensive breed. But generally speaking, you're going to get vet bills and the value of your pet. You may get some of the law is, you can get like the special value of it, and there is some acknowledgement of that within the law that pets, within case law, that pets are, do have a special value, but you're not going to get like you would if you or your child or something like that was bitten, and that is unfortunate, but at this point that's the way the law is, and people are emotional and it's sad, and I'll be honest with you, it's heartbreaking, and I would give away the store and to help everybody if I could, and not I'd be living under a bridge, because they are very sad cases and very emotional, and I know I would be suing everybody. Of course I don't have to pay a lawyer, so that helps, but but that is so and it's just and everybody says it's not about money, but really after the emotions, calm down a little bit.
What else is it about?
It is, and that's all we have for a capitalist society. That's how we place value on things. So that's what it is. There's no pain and suffering. So as you get in a car accident, and you have you're gonna have to live. Like I got in a car accident, I have whiplash. Gosh, I don't know, 15 years ago, and I'm always going to have that. So you have certain that comes with it. But you can't have that. You don't get emotional distress. They don't
not
get
with a pet. Huh?
No, it's just same as you wouldn't get emotional distress if somebody took a hammer to your car, which might also be stressful depending on the car. But
and I think that's so hard for people, even me, and I don't even own pets, at least not yet. My kids have not talked me into it yet, but. Classifying your baby, your family, is similar as a car. It's property.
Yeah.
And that's hard to even conceptualize.
It really it is, and it's and we run into that in all aspects of the pet law cases that we do, and it is judges are human, they understand, but they're bound by the law, and there are some states moving away from that in certain types of cases, mostly marriage cases where they're fighting over the pet, so that might be coming down the pike at some point for some states. I don't think Florida's going to be very high up on that, but I don't know, sometimes the state surprises me with its pet law kind of stuff, so you don't know, but that is right now, no, you don't get emotional distress. The dog doesn't get, cat or whatever it is, doesn't get emotional distress damages. It's really, their monetary value and some vet bills and things like that.
And who determines the monetary value of my beloved pet?
Right. I mean, there's no value. I mean, you ask any pet owner, they're not going to be able to tell you, right? So it's like what you paid for it, but like, okay, this is a stray cat that found me, like the cat distribution center or service or whatever found me, and so that's it's not really or whatever it is, even if it's a few $1,000s, that's not the same amount. So it's hard to place a value on that, and it's hard in human cases too. How do you place a value on your spouse or whatever? But there are people who get paid to do that, right?
To make those, actuarial tables and those things,
So it'll be a whole sub-genre of, it'll be a whole, it'll be a job creation if they get that, because they have insurance companies and, accountants and all kinds of people doing this math to figure that out. But,
absolutely.
Yeah, but right now we're stuck with that, and it's sad and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's a small claims case most of the time.
Ed, I don't know if you wanted to chime in. I know we've seen situations like this before with folks that have called, and I know Ed has had a similar situation where maybe it's a business that's responsible for your pet. You've taken them to, and there's so many great places nowadays. There's kennels, there's pet vacation spas, all kinds of things, or even groomers. You leave them at the groomers.
Yep, happens a lot.
And something happens to your pet. They're harmed, they're hurt, another animal attacks them, or the employee does something.
Or the veterinarian.
What kinds of remedies does that pet owner have?
It's the same, really. It's the same thing. I mean, the value is the same regardless. I think the highest to date verdict in I think it was vet malpractice, but a similar kind of case where the pet was hurt is like $20,000-$25,000, and it's like the highest. You went to jury trial on that.
They took it all the way to trial.
Yeah. So how much? I mean, you do the math, the expenses.
It would have cost you more to get to trial.
Yes, exactly, exactly. I mean, that's contingency. I'm sure and that's just not really profitable, and it's emotionally taxing too, because as I tell all of our clients that, and I'm sure you've had this conversation too, the case lives rent free in your head. I mean, we do take on a lot of that stress, but settling, and so to have that be the death of anybody, but certainly somebody you're not going to, it's at the end, you're not going to get that. And plus they don't tell you, unfortunately the pets are very bad at telling you when something's wrong. So it's hard to prove the facts as well.
That is difficult.
Yeah.
Did you have, I know you had a similar situation, Ed, for our listeners, I'm talking to our producer.
Yeah, I mean.
Did you have anything to add to that?
I was on vacation and my dog was in a boarding at where the vet is. They have boarding, and I was called halfway through my vacation saying he had an abscess, and he's being fussy. Can we sedate him? And I was like, an abscess where below his ear. Cocker spaniels have bad ears, but it really didn't make sense. And I said, well, yeah, if he's being fussy, go ahead and sedate him. And then they told me they gave him some antibiotics. When I get back, they'll assess it again, and then. They asked to do a culture, which is $200, as you say, it's cheap. But and then the culture came back as staph infection, and the medication that they put him on, the new antibiotic and cream, was specifically for a dog bite. Which my theory, in looking at it, and I had pictures of it, it is a puncture wound. Now, the problem I have is when I first talked to them, I got one story from the girl at the front desk. I got another one from the kid in the back. Then I got another one from the vet tech as to what actually happened. And it seems to me what they're trying, I asked them point blank, was there an altercation between my dog and another dog? And they looked at each other. Well, we're not aware of it. But all of a sudden, this whole thing happened. So it's just, and then I wound up sending him a registered letter and asking for the culture report. I still haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah.
So my point is that, is there pain and suffering in the dog? Yeah, there's a lot there.
Right.
What about me?
Yeah. Right,
Ruined
that's
half my vacation because I was worried about him.
Right.
So that's monetary value to me
Right.
because half my vacation was
Yeah.
was worried about it.
And you're probably worried about going on another vacation and leaving your dog behind.
And then there's the other point that I was in years past when you stayed. The two of them were together and they were in an area where they could run. He was in a cage, and I hate to use the word cage. They call it a condo, but is a fixed box with a metal door in the front. Is there enough that he can stand up? Room for him to stand up? Yes. Can he turn around? Yes. Can you put a bowl or two in there with him? No. He was in there for 10 days. And to me, it looks like one of those, when your dog is being worked on and you come pick him up, they put him in the one little kind of enough where he can lay down, and then you come pick them up. He was in that for 10 days. So
Yeah.
I still couldn't get a very wobbly. And then I went on, looked on reviews on this place that I've been going to for years, and to find out that they recently changed hands and the reviews are just in the tank.
Yeah.
Bad.
Yeah. It is, and unfortunately, that is, and especially, which thankfully, your dog is survived and all of that, but it's they do have ongoing pain, and a lot of times, we've had cases with where I've seen it, people have called us where, they've lost an eye or they've lost, something. I had a neighbor whose dog lost an eye in a fight. The neighbor's dog started it, but that is, it happens. So that is, it's unfortunate, but they're small claims cases. A lot of those places, though, you can contact animal services. So animal services may do an investigation. They may, they'll at least talk to you about that. I know Pinellas County in particular is good, and most of the counties are good about that. And then they may also, there's licensing. So, if there's any licensing involved, veterinarians are licensed through the DBPR, through the state, everybody's licensed through there pretty much, except for lawyers and doctors who have different licenses. But, so there is, you could go that route. You're not going to get compensation, but if you want, quote, justice, then sometimes that's.
I think that's what I'm
and that's what most
towards.
people want. That's but I feel bad. Like I can't. Well, one, I've got a business to run, but then also I feel bad because again, at some point you're paying me thousands of dollars and you're not going to get it. I just know I've been down this road before, and then I feel like I took advantage of you, even though you insisted I took the case. So it's kind of like it makes me feel bad to take somebody's money for that, and I've got I just can do this. So I will guide people of maybe what they need to do, but generally speaking, it's not right for an attorney involved, unless again, they were a service dog, and those are like $25,000-$30,000, something like that.
The only thing I did that on my part was, because I have such a strong feeling that something's not right here, and I'm not being told the truth, is I just disputed the charge for the boarding and for all the vet services that had to happen, which came like to $750 while I was gone. So.
Well, I'm not going to comment on the legality of that, but between you, God, and Amex and the vet,
whatever.
But I mean, and it's but that is a I mean, it's a problem, and as our pets, we get more and more pets, and they're out and about, they're getting into more trouble. They're the ones, maybe causing injuries, but injuries are more likely to happen to them too. And you've got more kinds of businesses that are just statistically speaking, you're going to have more incidents like this. And so it may change that, yes, this pain and suffering and things like that do come along with it. I know I'm biased, but I'm a firm believer in lawsuits being able to shape behavior and change things.
No, I agree.
Insurance companies in particular being able to do that.
Ideal world, yeah.
Yeah. And so that might help regulate things, because if, you really don't have any fear of anything happening to you, including even a lawsuit.
Right.
Then,
the law has to have teeth.
Yep, exactly. It has to have teeth. So I think, no pun intended, but I think that is it is something that is happening in other states, and it may happen here. Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Not on the table here, I will say that, but,
right.
But you never know.
So that was a little bit off of our outline, but I wanted to touch on that because I do think I see it quite a bit, and sometimes it's in conjunction with the injury to the dog owner. So they both got bitten.
Yeah, and that's
Me
a different
and my
story.
dog.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to make sure we brought that up. So, but going back to litigation, let's get into that, because I know a lot of times we're talking briefly off the air. We unfortunately have to turn people away at times because we get the case and we realize that there's no coverage. And then the person, the dog owner themselves, unfortunately, just doesn't have any assets or they're judgment proof, and there's really no real way to pursue the claim. And so we end up not being able to pursue it. But there are instances where there are assets and there is a basis and the damages are significant enough that we may still pursue it even when there's no insurance. So is that something that you find that comes to you is someone's has a claim being made, but their insurance has dropped it or denied it, and they're like, what do I do, April?
Yeah, that is the bulk of our really pretty much all of our dog bite defense cases. So if you call us, the first thing we're going to ask is, have you turn this into your insurance company, your homeowner's insurance company. Renter's insurance generally doesn't cover it. There is special insurance you can get. I'm actually looking to get it for my dog, not because she's done anything, but just, again, I also have a beware of dog sign. So, that is just...
That was my question, too. So there is a specialized coverage you can purchase as a dog owner.
Yeah, and now if your dog is deemed dangerous since July 1st of 2025, you have to get that insurance. And it's not...
It's almost like the SR22 DUI type coverage.
Exactly, special. And it's not as much as I thought it would be. I'm not going to say it's cheap, but I was, my clients who have been able to find it have been surprised that I really thought it would, because it's like $100,000 you have to get, so it's high coverage.
That's the required policy limit.
Yeah. So it's like getting your liability, if you have a car. So, but that is, but only if your car, drove itself and hit somebody, I guess. But yeah, but that is, but we do ask about that because those are the claims you need to make first. We don't do insurance defense, and your insurance company will hire an attorney. So don't even talk to us. That's fine. That's great for you. Good for you.
Right.
If there's a denial, I know Citizens pays out like $2,000 in medical, and that's it. And so most people on your side of the aisle go, no, thank you. We need more than that. And so most of our clients though have something to protect, but not necessarily. Everybody's got something to protect. I should say that. But a lot of them have investment income, or investment property or something like that. They're not necessarily just homesteaded, but as you can put a lien on a house that's not that is homesteaded. It just you're not going to get paid for a while.
Right.
Yeah. So, but that is, but it does happen. So everybody's got something to protect usually. Although it's a matter of whether or not the plaintiff's attorney wants to. Some of it's harder to get, and whether it's worth it or not. But that is, most our clients who we actually represent don't have insurance that covers it. Yeah.
Now, how do you decide who you help and who you say, this is probably not something that you want to hire me to help you with? Maybe you can handle this on your own, or is that ever the advice that you give?
For dog bite defense, so we get a lot of, you mentioned earlier, like somebody might call us and their dog it just happened. And that does happen. So we do charge a consultation fee because we will go over your documents before that. We will give you actual advice in that consultation fee. It's not just a sales pitch. But it is, so sometimes you just need that. And it's just telling you, okay, calm down. This is what animal control is going to do, or this is what's going to happen. You'll call us back when you need us. And sometimes they don't, and they don't ever get sued. They don't, nothing ever happens. Animal control does their thing and they're done with it. And, maybe they didn't get, anything other than a ticket. So it's really a cost benefit analysis because, it's different than on your side where you're evaluating, what's the case worth that, like, from a business perspective, and, and from us, it's everybody needs a defense, but it's going to be financially, is it worth it? Does it make sense? And are you okay? I always tell everybody, look, if it's worth it to you to hire us, even though it's not big dollars that's going to happen, even though it's small claims or whatever, or even it's just responding to a letter, if that makes you sleep better at night and you feel better, we're here for you. We'll do that. Yeah,
absolutely. So let's get into then a little bit of the approach when there is a dog bite and the strict liability applies. So I don't know if most of our listeners are familiar with it, so I'm just going to briefly go over the statute. It's 767.04. Dog owner's liability for damages to persons bitten. So the owner of any dog that bites any person while such person is on or in a public place or lawfully on or in a private place, including the property of the owner of the dog, is liable for damages suffered by persons bitten, regardless of the former viciousness of the dog or the owner's knowledge of such viciousness. However, so that means there's no notice requirement or anything like that. However, any negligence on the part of the person that is bitten, that is a proximate cause of the biting incident, reduces the liability of the owner of the dog by the percentage of the bitten person's negligence contributed to the dog biting. So we call that comparative fault. A person is lawfully upon a private property of such owner within the meaning of this act when that person is on the property in the performance of a duty imposed on him or her by the laws of this state or by the laws of the postal regulations of the United States. So we're covering postal workers. So when the person is on such property upon invitation, so you invited them there, either expressed or implied by the owner. However, the owner is not liable except to a person that's under the age of 6. So there's exceptions for children under age of 6. Or unless the damages are proximately caused by negligent act or omission of the owner, if at any time of such injury the owner had displayed in a prominent place on his or her premises a sign that is easily readable, including the words "bad dog." So I don't know that people actually have that exact wording.
They do. So we got one when I first got dogs, and this before I was even doing pet law as an adult in Florida. We got a bad dog sign, and our neighbors laughed because our dog at that time was, well, all dogs we've had are just just wiggly cuddle bugs or whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, well, it doesn't say how he's bad.
Yeah.
Like, okay, he doesn't listen. He counter surfs, And my husband was just like, he thought it was funny to get the one with like the arm in it, and stuff like that. Get the most vicious looking dog that didn't look anything like that. But we've got it on the gates and stuff. But Beware of Dog does do the trick.
Yeah, I thought you seen Beware of Dog more than Bad Dog.
Yeah, the statute says bad dog, and I remember studying for the bar here and seeing that and thinking, well, that has to actually say that. But if it says Beware of Dog, as long as like the person, reasonably understood it and it was in a prominent place, it has to be. So, this covers, UPS workers, postal workers, like you said, Amazon, the pizza delivery person, the water person, your pool person, your lawn person. So you want to put it, in a place where it's, seen. And again, it protects you even when, your dog hasn't bitten anybody before because they're animals. My joke is it's like they're a whole other species. We don't even know what they're thinking, which is true. So, we don't know what's going to trigger them sometimes. And even if your dog's a good dog, even if your dog's tiny, it does not hurt to put that up there.
Absolutely.
And it could really help you in the long run.
Absolutely. That's a huge defense. So then going back then to comparative fault. So from your perspective, what is it that the bitten person or the injured party could potentially do that could reduce the liability of your client, the dog owner?
It would. I think the biggest thing would be if they're really teasing the dog, tormenting the dog. If you've warned them, hey, stay away from my dog. My dog, is provoked by I don't know, people who wear yellow or whatever.
Sure.
I don't know if they can see that, but yeah.
If you're watching, I'm wearing yellow.
I'm not a vet. I don't understand all their dog, eyesight issues, but so that is things like that, and then you purposely then go over there, right? So things like that, or things again, sometimes depending on the situation, if they do insinuate themselves into a dog fight. But again, I would hate to go in front of a jury and say, their little dog was getting attacked by your medium-sized dog or little bigger dog or very bigger dog, and we're just expected to, we're going to fault them for that. I would not let, I've told my clients, like, that's not a position you want to be in, and explain that to a jury, because then that means you're showing pictures of probably maybe a dead dog or a very injured dog to a jury, which you don't want to do.
You don't want to do.
Yeah, that's worse than a person. But that is, but there are things like that, like I said, teasing, those kinds of things. would be doing that if they have a history of abusing or tormenting the dog. That would obviously be that. But they're not controlling their little Chihuahua, and that dog instigating your dog, that doesn't count.
Yeah,
that's our biggest. Cases, our biggest, amount of cases, our largest amount of cases are usually dogs are talking crap to each other, and it's the little dog that pays usually with injuries, and it's the big dog's owner that pays with money.
Right. So we've touched on it briefly. I do want to make sure we get it in before our show is concluding. Landlords, property owners who may not necessarily realize, I hope they do, but may not realize that their tenants' dogs can become liability issues for them. So how is that the case? And if so, what are the circumstances where that could happen?
Well, as you know, and as we've talked about the issue with people on your side, attorneys on your side, the plaintiffs, are looking for
the good guys,
the
right?
money,
No, I'm just kidding.
whatever. I mean, usually they're both pet owners, so I can't. But they are looking for where they can get some money, and so the property owner comes into that, and so it's not strict liability because they're not the dog owner, but they are if they knew or should have known that the dog was there and had a propensity for dog bites, then they can be held liable for that. And if they do have insurance, as you know, probably the insurance companies.
So there is a notice component then with the
right. They had to have known. They had to have known or should have known
Knew or should have known.
Yeah. And but a lot of times, if they do have insurance, that insurance is just going to settle that, because once you get past that, it's the dog bit somebody. It's not really short of anything. They were breaking into the house, or like you said, trespassing, or they were or there's a no. Beware of dog sign, or there's they were really tormenting the dog, and you can prove that. It's just they're tough cases even under just regular negligence.
Yeah. So then, do you have a situation where, let's say that the landlord specifically disallowed, certain kind of dogs from the pit bulls or whatnot from being on the premises? You're not allowed to lease here or be a tenant with a pit bull, but tenant has a pit bull, and the pit bull bites someone. How does that work with the landlord's liability when they've expressly prohibited that type of thing?
Right. Well, again, if how diligent were they in finding out? Did they know? Did they, turn the other cheek because, hey, this renter is, pays well or whatever, or it's my, son-in-law or whatever, So those are, if you've got rules, you got to enforce them. They're no good. I tell my employer clients that all the time. So that is
you acquiesce to the behavior.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not it's not a get out of jail free card if you knew or should have known. Again, and how diligent were you in making sure that wasn't going on? I'm not saying you got to walk in there and inspect it all the time, but did you stick your head in the sand?
Yeah. Very quickly, breweries, places nowadays, everyone's got dogs are everywhere. Service dogs, support dogs. What kind of liability or what would you tell these businesses, just in a very short synopsis of what they should be doing to?
You're basically like the landlord. You're getting and it can't be like, oh, we're the dog bar. There's dogs here. You assumed the risk, right?
Yeah.
Or a dog park, same thing. You should have known you might get bitten at a dog park. There's specific case law that says no, that doesn't count. So it can't be that. And you've got to get good insurance. That's what I'm going to tell those people. If you're letting pets in, and
get good insurance.
As far as service animals and things like that, that's not a reason to reject them. If your insurance says no, we don't allow pets in. That's a whole other show.
Yes, absolutely. April, very quickly, give them your phone number, website, and how they can reach you if they have these kinds of questions to follow up.
So you can call us at 727-316-5333. Our website is www.goodwin-firm, GOODWIN-FIRM.com. And you Google Pet Lawyer St. Pete. That's a good way to find us.
That's how you'll find her. Awesome. I hope you all enjoyed the show. Thank you, April, once again for informing our listeners about dog bites and how they can protect themselves from the kinds of cases that we often bring at our law firm. So that's our show tonight, folks. We thank you for joining us, and we will be back next Tuesday at 5 o'clock with FLA Law on the radio. Thanks, April.
Thank you.